Hello to everyone who are already on the line. I see more folks are joining us, but this is just a reminder that in about 5 minutes we will begin our webinar. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Challenge Initiative for Healthy Cities, TCIHC's third installment in its webinar series on learnings and impact from the introduction and scale up of proven family planning and adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health solutions. My name is Jessica Mirano. I'm a program officer focused on monitoring and evaluation based here in Baltimore. And I will be your moderator for this webinar entitled Know the Pulse of Your Initiative, Strategies for Effective Database Decision Making for Urban Family Planning in India, or as we fondly call the D4D. After more than 3 years of working with state and local governments in 31 cities of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha to scale proven family planning and adolescent and youth interventions, and covering 32 million city population as well as 12 million slum population, TCIHC has collected a number of learnings based on this experience, all contributing to their vision of a business unusual approach to scaling up and sustaining proven urban reproductive health solutions. This webinar will introduce you to one of the proven solutions TCIHC uses to help local governments use data more effectively. Like other countries, India has issues with data management. In addition, available data is often not consolidated, fully analyzed, or presented in a manner that can help stakeholders understand current performance or make informed programmatic decisions. When data is analyzed and discussed regularly, however, it can help programmers determine corrective measures or encourage good performance. Together, we will find out more about India's approach to D4D during this webinar. I'm very pleased to introduce you to today's speakers, my TCIHC colleagues from PSI India. First, we have Emily Das, who is the Associate Director leading the monitoring and evaluation efforts for TCIHC in India. We have Nitin Kumar Dwivedi, who is the Senior Manager of Programs for City Planning. He will be followed by Dipti Mathur, who is a Senior Specialist for Knowledge Management at TCIHC. Lastly, we have Anupam Anand, who is currently serving as TCIHC's Manager of Programs in Moradabad in Uttar Pradesh. Our webinar for today has these four main objectives: introduce the power of D4D, detail the 5 steps of TCIHC's D4D approach, share big wins and key learnings, and lastly, offer an opportunity for Q&A so participants can adapt the approach to their context. The speakers will present for about 35 to 40 minutes. We welcome questions at any time. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to ask the speakers along with the TCIHC Chief of Party, Mukesh Sharma, who is with us today, to answer as many as possible at the end of the presentation. With that, I will turn it over to our first presenter, my wonderful and very dynamic colleague, Emily.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I am Emily Das, Associate Director, Monitoring, Learning and Evaluation, PSI India TCIHC program. I welcome you again to today's webinar titled Know the Pulse of Your Initiative, Strategies for Effective Data-Based Decision Making for Urban Family Planning in India. I'm going to begin this webinar today with a quarantine question. With most of us locked up in our homes, I just want to understand a very interesting point of discussion amongst us, among our family and friends. What do I cook today? I'm going to be posting this question. A question must be pop up in your box. So I request all of you to participate on this. And let's see what's the response. Yes, so my quarantine menu planning is depended on these two answers. Yes, so for us to decide on, yes, my family favorites, what are in my pantry, right? So for us to decide on what to cook depends on two important data points. For most of us, it is what is available in my pantry, and for some of us, it is my family favorites. So our data points for decision may have been really different if we're not in quarantine. So D4D in simple term is just this. Next slide, please. So now that we have applied D4D for making menu decisions, let us now understand how D4D is relevant to a health program. In TCIHC, D4G programmatically designed to understand how far, how fast, how well has the initiative reached towards expected level of achievements. In this design, we are answering 4 questions. First, what is the scale and intensity of activities? Second, is it translating into gains at TCIHC supported facilities? Third, are TCIHC geographies improving? Fourth, do they compare favorably to others? Next slide, please. Yes. Before I start unpacking D4D activities in India, I want to give you an experience of the power of D4D in programs. There are 2 graphs on the screen. The one on the left is the analysis of family planning uptake of 20 TCIHC supported city in 2016 when the program began its operation in India. On the right side is the family planning uptake from the same 20 cities within just 12 months of implementation. The graph that was taking a downward path is rocketing to the moon. In the landscape, where the modern contraceptive prevalence rate follows a declining trend in urban and more specifically the urban poor, the TCIHC program in its intervention cities of Uttar Pradesh has reversed this trend. A propeller of this result in the TCIHC India Hub is the systematic use of data for decision making. Today's webinar will focus on how the program provided technical assistance to government stakeholders across national, state, and city level towards establishing data for decision making as an approach towards increasing demand for and access to family planning services to the urban poor. Next slide, please. Yes, in this slide, we'll discuss how of D4D. The India program has outlined a 5-step cycle for using data to make program decisions. In the slides that follow, we will detail out each of these steps. Let me read out these steps for you. First, coach. Second, map. Third, analyze. Fourth, data to action. Fifth, identifying coaching needs and course correction. Next slide, please. The first and the foremost step in D4D is to coach key stakeholders to list out the decisions that must be made to increase family planning uptake amongst the urban poor. We have some of these decisions questions that is listed in the slide, classified under demand, under supply, and under enabling environment. For example, under demand, how do programs be sure that counseling service is reaching women who are in need of family planning, like the young cohort of 15 to 29 years of age? Under supply, if we want to know how do programs ensure that women get a method of their choice? Under enabling environment, that what must be the budget allocation for urban family planning? These are not the questions listed by the program. These decision questions are listed by the city health teams, while staff and stakeholders at the national level and leadership at city and district level, starting from chief medical officers and additional chief medical officers, usually have the necessary capacity to analyze, interpret, and use data. That capacity often needs to be built as we move down the value chain. Using a template adopted from Urban Health Initiative UHI, TCIHC program coached city officials and health facility providers to decide on the specific programmatic questions that will be explored during the routine feedback meetings. TCIHC's expression of interest, that we call it as EOI, and the program design process is an excellent platform where government stakeholders, both at city and state level, work with TCIHC to inquire and develop these decision questions. It is really interesting to note that once the decision questions are listed along with the city health teams, they form an important agenda item in the city level review meetings. Next slide, please. Yes, the second step is mapping data sources to inform program design. Program implementation requires both quantitative and qualitative data to answer the questions. In India, we have rich resources of quantitative data, that is NFHS, DLHS, AHS, sensors, HMIS, state PIPs, and many more. However, this data is not enough to answer all our questions. For example, the country HMIS typically collects and reports information on the number of women adopting family planning methods from a certain type of facility. However, it doesn't give information on the age and parity of the women. Neither can we know the number of women reached with information on family planning methods and services. Similarly, HMIS does not give data segregated by service delivery sites. Like we do not know what is the service uptake from community service delivery sites, such as Urban Health and Nutrition Day, or from our outreach camps. Next slide, please. So what we did, the program through meetings at the state and national level is advocating with governments to include these critical additional data points in the government data sources such as HMIS towards demonstrating the importance of these additional data points and how it informs program decisions. The TCISC India program organized the data sources into a framework that is illustrated in the slide. TCISC designed a project management information system that we call it as PMIS. Introduction of this PMIS provided cities with real-time, near-time data to monitor the scale and intensity of implementation, along with some of the critical output indicators that can contribute to improving family planning uptake. The second data sources is HMIS that we have used rigorously. The program actually analyzes HMIS data on a monthly basis to measure the family planning uptake and facilitate reporting for all its 513 urban primary health centers and more than 70 district facilities from all 31 TCISC supported cities. TCISC also conducts an output tracking survey annually to assess the change in modern contraceptive prevalence rate and track some of the output indicators like exposure to the intervention activities and change in knowledge, attitude, practices among these target women. Under quantitative, TCISC used this PMIS, HMIS, output tracking survey, whereas in qualitative, we have more significant change stories and pause and reflect and act at two major data sources that we'll discuss afterwards. In the slide that follows, we will now demonstrate on how data from each of these data sources are being analyzed to answer some of the decision questions listed by the city health teams. Step 3 in D4D cycle is analyze data for actionable insight. Nitin Dwivedi, our senior manager city planning, will tell us through the critical step of analyzing data steps for actionable insight. Nitin is responsible for developing city-specific action items and supporting city managers' effort in bringing data to action. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you, Dr. Emily. Hello, everyone. I am Nitin Dwivedi, and it is a fantastic opportunity to be here today. The next step in D4D is analyze data for actionable insights. Relevant data from the 4 key data sources, PMIS, HMIS, local tracking surveys, and most stories are analyzed to mine for insight. I am going to give you some examples from the quantitative data analysis, which provides insights for action. Here in the slide, we can see a decision question from demand side. Are frontline health workers reaching women with highest need of family planning method? Data analyzed during the program initiation period point to a low reach to women of all ages. As data is periodically analyzed, we do see a significant improvement in frontline health workers reaching more women who are in the younger cohort and have unmet need for spacing method. What insight does this data give us? This analysis insights that ASAs needs coaching in targeting the right client, mapping and listing of clients, and prioritizing them by their need for family planning services is a skill that needs to be built. Next slide, please. Yes. How do we motivate ASAs to improve their reach and coverage? A critical input to this is to ascertain ASA's knowledge, skill, and attitude to perform her task. The program, through its coaching model of lead, assist, and observe, gathered data on ASA's knowledge, skill, and attitude and reported in the PMI. The graph illustrates at almost 31% of ASAs were in the observe state during the initiation of the coaching model. by 2019, almost 81% are in the assist and observe stage. In the observe stage, an ASA is completely confident to conduct the visit or call on her own or family planning services. What insight does this data provide? This analysis of ASA performance gives us insight on the time period required to coach and mentor ASA towards performance excellence. Next slide, please. Yes. Here in this slide, we can see a decision question from supply side. Are women getting method of their choice at the urban primary health center? The slide that we see on the screen is an important example of how analysis of data from PMIS accelerated the inclusion of a new method into the method mix of urban primary health center. At program initiation stage, you can see here only 10% of urban primary health center in February 2018 were provisioning long-acting reversible contraceptive. The expanding method of choice of both IUCD and injectable is visible in the graph through the program period. Here, the insight is that we need to advocate with the government for regular supply of injectable in the urban health center. The availability of method mix provides the opportunity to clients to choose the method mix of their choice. It increases the family planning service uptake and also build up the confidence of community on their nearest facility. Next slide, please. Yes. Our facility is regular in providing family planning services through fixed day static approach or FDS as we call it often. Facility level analysis from PMIS data indicates that during the program implementation, over 90% of facilities conducting at least 4 FDS in a month. This is a significant jump from the start of the program. Insights, as fixed day services are regularized, cities start developing FDS calendars, which ensures that both supply and trained staff are available at the facilities on those fixed days. Next slide, please. Yes. Here in this slide, we can see a decision question from enabling environment side. Is there an annual increase in family planning client volume? HMI's data from each facility are analyzed on monthly basis to how fast is the program progressing and whether it is resulting in gains. This analysis is done at 3 different levels. First at TCIC supported urban primary health centers. Second at city level, combining urban primary health center level data with data from district hospitals and medical colleges. And third, at state level using data from both TCISC and non-TCIC supported cities for urban areas. TCISC with guidance from Gates Institute employed couple year protection or CYP based adjustment methodology to measure the annual client value, to measure the trend for uptake of short-acting methods, long-acting methods, and permanent methods. Urban primary health center and city level analysis are done for each city separately to diagnose the gains and the gaps. This analysis gives us actionable insights on city level performance related to facility reporting rate and increase in client volume for each method. Next slide, please. Another question on enabling environment is, are budgets for family planning properly allocated and utilized to urban facilities? To ensure that urban family planning programs are adequately funded and the funds are being utilized, the program analyzed local contribution to observe the budgetary provisions and utilization required for strengthening family planning in urban health platforms. The data provides us with an insight that when regular review of budget allocation is conducted, it improves the infrastructure and quality of family planning services in the city. With this, I wrap up this section on analysis and insights from quantitative data. The program also mines insights from qualitative aspects, which will be detailed out by Deepti, who is our senior specialist General Manager, Knowledge Management. Deepti is our learning expert and ensures that program learnings are captured and shared amongst both internal and external audience. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. I hope all of you and your families are safe. I am Deepti Mathur from PSI India and I lead the knowledge management vertical for TCIHC. By now, we saw that there is a cyclic process followed for a complete round of data for decision making. While all these nuggets focused on quantitative data, I am going to shed light on how we build a qualitative understanding of the impact of the program. Qualitative data analysis is completed through two platforms, the most significant story technique and the pause and reflect exercise. Most significant story process follows an elevator pitch approach. Bus 2 minute or, simply meaning tell your story in just 2 minutes, and institutionalized it in the review meetings. Bus 2 minute or nurtures healthy competition among the city teams. Based on regular interactions with city officials, city managers volunteer to share stories in 2 minutes which are significant and narrate a noteworthy contribution made by TCIHC according to them. Three significant changes are selected every quarter and developed into stories. It is at the stage of crafting the stories that we involve several government stakeholders. Recently, we see engagement of government in narration and in documentation of the stories also. The stories capture learning experiences of a particular city that may help other cities when faced with a similar challenge or an opportunity. The selected topics are shared with the city teams, citing reasons for selection, which gives them insight for next round of MSc story process. The final MSc blogs are also shared back with the city, which motivates them to perform even better. Another critical support provided by MSc is that these serve as advocacy tools for our city teams. For example, an analysis of injectable data from HMIS made the case for advancing the injectable to the urban primary health centers in Madhya Pradesh. This success was captured and used for advocating with the Uttar Pradesh government for a similar effort in urban primary health centers there. And most of all, each of the TCIHC member looks forward to adorn the gallery of contributors for the blogs published on TCI University. Next slide, please. MSc Stories also provides us with actionable insights. Many stories narrate the empowerment of women who have taken family planning decisions with the support of ASHAs, which gives us an insight on the importance of building skills in ASHAs to negotiate conversations on family planning decisions with men and other gatekeepers in the community. In this slide are few voices that narrate the qualitative impact of the program. Let me read one such quote from Kusum Lata Kashyap, an Asha working in Lucknow. She said, during Mission March, all Ashas, auxiliary nurse midwives, and Anganwadi workers worked out as a team to reach out to more men and women with family planning messages. Reaching more family planning clients was our prime mission. TCIHC team and medical officers of urban primary health centers guided us on how to improve our efficiencies. Now, family planning is a part of my daily counseling. So, what insight does this experience tell us? That frontline health workers are often motivated when included in review meetings, being recognized by their names, given letter of appreciation by their supervisor. Mission March gave them this opportunity to work closely with the city health leadership. This insight is supporting our advocacy efforts with governments to include platforms to recognize ASHA performance. Next slide, please. Another qualitative exercise we employ is the pause and reflect and act exercise. The genesis behind is that in today's world, the only thing that is constant is change. As a result, it is imperative that governments and organizations leading health and development programs manage adaptively through continuous learning. We do such adaptation in the path we tread through the pause, reflect, and act exercise periodically. This particular activity helps us identify what is working, what needs to be adjusted, and allows us to consider the impact of changes in the operating environment or context. Let me share an insight we mined from one of our PNR exercise. So, During initial days, our city teams were struggling to demonstrate fixed day static approach at the urban primary health centers. Reasons given were Asha is not able to give time to family planning as she is occupied with pulse polio or immunization. TCIC demonstrated fixed day static approach in a 30-hour Magic Plus mode and revealed that in spite of all the other priorities, assured family planning services at a fixed day and time known to the community is possible. FDS for family planning is possible at urban primary health centers. This insight gave us clear actionable point that all city managers can demonstrate in 30 hours that fixed day static approach can drive client volume at the urban primary health centers for family planning and get a city's buy-in. Next slide, please. Now, what does the program do with all these insights? Before it is shared, it is developed into products. A helpful method for sharing data insights to a wide variety of audiences through data visualizations, since people can process and understand information faster and better when presented visually than through text-based reports. Some of the D4D products are HMI's dashboard, PMI's dashboard, state monthly report, city-specific monthly report, city-specific expenditure report. Next slide, please. So here are some of the snapshot of MSc stories, and I'm sure you will enjoy reading them. I welcome you all to join us on TCI University. Thank you for your patient listening. Do reminisce past, pause, reflect, and act in your lives. Now, I welcome Anupam Anand, Manager Programs, Muradabad, to talk about his experience.
Thank you, Deepti. Hello, everyone. I bring greetings from the city manager of all the 31 cities in the India Hub. I will talk about the fourth step in D4D. In this stage, data products are shared with local city governments and state governments for action. I am going to explain this through my personal experience. I am Anupam Anand, city manager for the city of Muradabad in Uttar Pradesh. The city has 26 urban primary health centers catering to a slum population of 0.5 million. Every month, city managers from across 31 cities engage in a 2-day review and planning meeting in the state capital. I really look forward to the 2 days where the TCISC management, operations, MLE, quality, communications, all of us are together and collectively reflecting on the past month's performance and most importantly, planning for the month ahead. During the meeting, every city is given a performance report on various parameters. Insights from data analysis support us in designing solutions to the challenges. 8 months ago, in one such state meeting, I observed that 4 of the urban primary health centers in Muradabad has a very low client load for family planning services. The root cause being paucity of IUCD insertion kits and boiler for sterilizing the equipments, which was limiting the provision of long-acting reversible contraceptive method. Thus, low method mix and therefore low demand for family planning services. As a team, we brainstorm and develop specific action points for our city. We also map the key influencer in the city with whom we have to advocate for the action to be completed. Finally, our timeline is developed for the completion of the action, which will be reviewed in the subsequent state level monthly meeting. Next slide, please. Once we are back in our cities, our immediate response is to share the data and the insights with city health governance teams towards an action. So we can see the insights provide a very strong advice pointer for nudging key influencer to take decisions or action. So back in the city, I met the chief medical officer with the data on the client uptake of the low performing 4 UPSCs and the reason for the low demand for the services in the urban primary health centers. Chief medical officer was quick to make the decision. Right across the table, not only did he sign the directives for purchase of IUCD insertion kits for the 4 UPSCs, but he also provisioned budget for additional kits in all the urban PSCs of the city. Next slide, please. Each urban primary health center is allocated with a fund called the Rogi Kalyan Samiti Fund, primarily to enhance the client experience at the primary health center. On receiving the directive from the Chief Medical Officer, the medical officers at the UPSCs allocated budgets from the fund to procure new IUCD insertion kits and boilers. The action is reported back to the district officers and data is monitored to observe if the action is reflecting in change. The action did bring about change. In just 2 months, the demand for the family planning services in the 4 urban primary health centers doubled. Data indeed drives action and action drives results. It is my personal experience from the city of Muradabad. Thank you. Dr. Emily will now tell us more on how data enables decisions at the state level. Over to Dr. Emily.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anupam, for sharing your experience from city and how the data has got shared, how this sharing led to some of these critical actions. Now, I would like to take you to some of the leveraging platforms such as technical support group for urban health, technical support group for family planning, technical support group for MISRH at the state level, where we normally share these insights and learnings from the data analysis for a bigger impact and decision. Some of the examples of key learnings that we have just heard that we share with the state authorities as well are changes. And what we share, these are the changes observed in city-wide strengthening of urban family planning, initiatives by cities to remove bottlenecks, challenges faced by cities, support required to release supplementary guidelines, and promotions of state officials' visit at urban primary health centers. Next slide, please. Yes. Now to the fifth and final step of data for decision-making process, that is course correction and identifying the coaching needs. Once the data are analyzed and actions are identified to address performance issues and gaps, TCIHC stakeholders then make iterative adjustments to program activities to ensure greater success. For example, at demand level, TCIHC use reach and quality of reach data captured through PMIs while coaching ASHAs to advocate for training of ASHAs on family planning, regular updation of urban health index register, preparation of due list for prioritization of family planning clients. At a supply level, if we see, HMIS data are regularly reviewed in district review meeting for IUCD insertions at urban primary health centers to advocate for ensuring supply of IUCD insertion kits and boilers for sterilizing equipment, which ultimately improve the method mix. We have also seen how analysis of data from HMIS accelerated the inclusion of a new method, that is injectable contraceptive Antara, into the method mix in urban primary health centers in all 3 states where TCIHC is working. At enabling environment level, we have examples almost from all 31 TCIHC supported cities on formation of a district data validation committee constituting of chief medical officer, additional chief medical officer family planning, additional chief medical officer urban health and GPM. Additionally, urban primary health centers level data validation committee are also formed with medical officers, staff nurse, pharmacist, and auxiliary nurse midwife to authenticate this family planning data before this gets entered into HMIS portal. This system enormously contributed to minimize the data reporting errors and improves completeness and timeliness in HMIS reporting. Next slide, please. Yes. So we are almost at the end of the presentation slides and completed explaining all our D4D steps. Now it is now time to ask us if these stages of steps actually resulted in gains. Did data move decisions? Yes, it did. Here are some of the big wins that data gave. After the successful implementation of Lao coaching model, TCIC with government endorsement introduced the 2x2 matrix, which is a way to easily review data from multiple registers at one place to help with decision making. This tool is building the culture of prioritization and drives decision following the data analysis. Subsequently, this tool will transform the review engagements between Ashas and her supervisor NM that follows a scientific approach to reorganize the existing data by Ashas. Next slide, please. The strategic approaches adopted by TCIHC have shown unprecedented increase in the modern contraceptive prevalence rate in just 1 year. This is a result from our population-based survey. Between 2 rounds of the population-based survey conducted in 2018 and 2019, it showed a significant increase in the MCPR among the target women residing in the program areas. We have observed this increase among women belonging to both the age group 15 to 49 years and 15 to 25 years. D4D, as one of the high impact approach, significantly played a significant role in bringing this change.
Emily, really great presentation so far, and to you and to all our 3 other presenters as well. And at this time, I just wanted to take a quick pause. You have highlighted in detail the 5 steps for D4D that TCIHC is implementing, as well as some of our biggest wins. At this point, I'm just also interested, are there any challenges along the way that the team has faced in implementing these 5 steps for D4D? And are there any steps that are harder or more challenging to implement than others? I think it will be interesting for us to hear about that as well.
Oh, yes, Jessica. Thank you so much for such a brilliant question. This is really important, Jessica. Yes, definitely. We also face challenges almost in all steps of D4D, starting from data capturing to determining the coaching nets at the system level. One of the major challenge, I think, we faced is, while we convert these insights and converting these insights into action. In fact, before I explain this in detail, let's hear something from Anupam on these challenges at a city level while implementing this best practice. Anupam, can I request you to please enlighten us on some of your experience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dr. Emily. Let me share one of my experience. While expanding injectable contraceptives in 26 urban primary health centers of the Moradabad, data informed us about the high demand for the injectable Antra in the community. But while bringing injectable into urban primary health centers, city-level government officials struggled to train their staff for injectable and ensuring supply. While government directives were available on the guidelines to be followed when rolling out injectable in the secondary and tertiary facilities, but there were no guidelines for injectable rollout in urban primary health centers. And therefore, there were no budgetary provision for the training of providers. So city teams required regular state level advocacy and interventions for issuing the guidelines to the cities, preparing training calendars, expanding supply, and provisioning of budgets for record keeping. I request now Dr. Emily to add more on this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Anupam. This is really, we agree on all these major challenges that we faced, not only in Moradabad, but also in all our cities while bringing injectable into UPSCs. Jessica, we also face challenges while integrating routine data quality assurance, even though validation committee both at city and UPSC levels are formed. There is paucity of a dedicated human resource for HMIs at the primary health facility that we observed mainly in Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. Therefore, this charge is passed on to a resource who may not have adequate skills to perform this task. And this affects some of the data quality improvement measures, like checking accuracy, matching the input record with output record for data entry are not sometimes adequately followed. TCIC is working to identify at least one coach at the facility level for HMIS data quality improvement. Yes, so these are some of the challenges, Jessica, I just wanted to brief on.
Thank you so much, Emily and Nitin. Those were really great examples of some of the challenges that we're facing in terms of D4D and the actions that we take. I think what I took from there is one, in terms of improving data quality and doing that data quality assurance is one challenge, and all the steps that you're taking for that. And Nitin's point, which is also very important, that at the end of the day, we want to turn all these insights to action, and we need continued advocacy to make that happen. So thank you so much for indulging my question. And I believe you have two last slides to close out our presentation before we take additional questions. Emily, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Can I request you to show the next slide? Yes. So this is, till now, we have discussed how this data sharing and review brought so many positive results. I would like now to tell you some of the key learnings while implementing this high impact approach in India. I mean, the first one is definitely regular review and sharing of data. We found the data must be shared with government system throughout the program implementation process, starting from the program designing, collection, analysis, and dissemination. If we share data only at the end of the process, they cannot be contributing, ideas and resources that may help make program decisions more effective. This regular review of data will definitely create a demand for data among the stakeholders. One of the learning is, creating coaches within the system for data use and decision making, and that will make this powerful approach sustainable. Customized data sharing template. This should be developed depending on the type of audience and their demand for data. There should be, a framework for linking data into action. A framework for linking data into action should be in place in order to visualize how D4D is applied in the programmatic implementation. This tool should be regularly monitored and updated to prioritize decisions. I also want to bring one of the best learning that we had in terms of how PMIs demonstrated, the demonstration of PMIs actually strengthen HMIs. In this entire process, we have seen elimination of duplicate reporting in some of the family planning methods in urban primary health centers and district facilities. All facilities are using standard definition while uploading service data from urban health and nutrition days and outreach camps. And we are also seeing improvement in accuracy of reporting compared to other non-TCI cities. Next slide, please. Yes, we have come to the end of the presentation, which I will end with this quote from Anasha. These days, I write my list of things to do. I make a list of women whom I have to visit. Classify them as visit for counseling or family planning methods, visit for follow-up support. If I'm visiting women who need condoms and pills, I can carry supplies with me. This is our dream, and we are sure this dream will become a reality soon. Everybody in the family planning value chain will use data to the last mile. Data for decision making is going to be a culture and going to be a habit. Before I end my presentation, wanted to convey my sincere thanks to all our district level officials, to all our city managers in each of the 31 TCISC cities who are leading this culture of data for decision making in their cities. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation on D4D. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily, Nitin, Deepti, and Anupam for that wonderful, clear, and crisp presentation on D4D that you just shared. I also, at this time, just want to acknowledge all of the India representation that I see in our attendees and saying hi to us in the chat box. Really nice to see good representation from different cities and states in India, and of course all of our other global partners from different parts of the world who are joining us during the third webinar series that we have today. There's also some positive comments that have come in during the presentation on how lovely the slides have been, how it's an excellent presentation on D4D. So really kudos to the TCIHC team in India for putting this together. We have received some very interesting questions over the course of the presentation. So far, I grouped them into 3 categories. I've seen questions related to data itself, so maybe we can go to those first. There are also questions relating to implementation and even some questions on COVID and how this affects implementation. And then lastly, there are some questions on ASHES as well. So maybe we can go to that in that order given the time that we have. So going to the data questions, we have some more straightforward questions from Wasi Ahmad asking who prepares the HMIS dashboard and how frequent it is updated, as well as I think a related question from Himan asking about the back checking of data before finalization. Emily, would you like to address those questions before I proceed to the next ones that we have?
Yes, Jessica, definitely. The dashboard that Dipti showed as a product from TCISC, that is in fact, the dashboard that TCISC actually developed. We look at the HMIS data from all the cities. Our managers are there. They are working with the state government officials. We also look at the data for all facilities. Look at it in-house. We prepare this HMIS dashboard, share it with all our cities so that that dashboard can directly go into the city officials to discuss how the facilities are performing. In this dashboard, we have facility-wise and method-wise, visibility. There are that you can diagnose it, go into the methods, go into the facilities, segregated by UPHC, segregated by TCI-supported facilities and non-TCI-supported facilities for all our 3 states. So that's normally we do it, but now we are actually finding out a coach. We are in the process of training to the officials at the government level, city level, so that they themselves can also do that. But currently we are doing it on our own and sharing it. And for the back checks, as we said, the data validation committee that we have already constituted, I mean, government has constituted along with, TCISC is also part of that in terms of looking at how it is going. As I said, monitoring metrics is very important. They have started their work, but in the validation committee, data back checking sometimes happen, but the major challenge is definitely there is not one resource completely dedicated to HMIS. Sometimes it is actually progressing well, specifically for the back check of HMIS data. But TCISC also has its own, routine data quality assurance assessment that we do on a quarterly basis to understand how it is going. Because we have, as I said, PMIS is also a source, how we have helped them to, strengthen HMIS. That also we are doing it simultaneously. That also kind of a check for us to understand how the reporting is happening both in PMIS and HMIS. So there are different measures for understanding the quality, but I agree, quality is still, needs to be strengthened more with both of our efforts. Thank you. Yeah, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Emily, for responding to those questions. I think we can move on to the next question on data. Oying asked a question, and maybe Deepti can respond to this, or anyone from the India team, but specifically on MSC, our most significant change stories. How do we do this in a way that we could pull them together that is publishable in a peer journal on use of qualitative method to go beyond just telling the good stories, which is good by itself, but may not be enough for a scientific article. So what are our moves towards making our MSc methodology as well as the stories publishable in journal articles? DP, maybe you want to start with trying to answer this question?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you, Owen, for raising this pertinent question, which is also in our line of thought. So, most significant change stories are our direct way of, gathering voices from the field, from the people who work with us at the city level. And, with over 20 more so months of implementation, and with our population surveys now, which is in our hand, we can look into the data, we can do some meta-analysis, and, look into data which can back up the quotes we gather from the field. And right now, like you yourself mentioned, that these stories right now are in the blog form and not enough for a scientific article. But with this, amount of data with over 20 months of implementation and 2 rounds of OTS, we can, look into producing articles which can be, reviewed by peers and go into a peer-reviewed journal. And I can request Mukesh to add more on this.
No, thank you, Deepti. And I think you covered the things. And in fact, we have planned these peer-reviewed articles in the brazier, coming years. And I just wanted to mention one more thing. If you remember when you were in Firozabad, and on the same day, how chief medical officers ordered, issued a letter to start injectable on in UPHCs. And after that, we reached to state and we provided some support to CIFSA. We even said that we will put some $20,000 for training, but CIFSA said, no, we will do the training. And they provisioned special money for these 20 cities training for doctors and nurses. So, having said that, we have all these storage with us, now supported with data. We have OTS, we have HMIS, we have, number of additional users, we have reversing trends, and we have planned at least 2 peer-reviewed articles in the brazier.
Great. Thank you so much, Deepti and Mukesh, for responding to that question from Uying. Okay, now moving us on to some of a few comments that we received again. Nice webinar. Thanks for motivating folks for participating. Also, thanks for the wonderful presentation. So just wanted to give some of that positive feedback again. But moving on to our next set of questions, maybe we can take this time. There are 2 questions related to ASHAs, and maybe Nitin can quickly respond to those, and Mukesh or team can add to it. But there was a clarification at the beginning from Aminu. Do ASHAs provide family planning services? You made mention of assessment of their counseling skills. And I think related to that is a question from Geetanjali. How much time does it take for ASHAs to be fully trained to the point when less coaching is required, and then when they are on their own able to provide required services? So I think that lead, assist, observe form of coaching that we have, I think they're trying to confirm how long that time takes. So I'm not sure if Nitin or Mukesh would want to have a go at these 2 questions related to ASHAs.
Okay, so thanks, Jessica, and thanks for the questions. Let me attempt this. So the first was how ASHAs are providing services. So, there are 2 parts of the services ASHA provides in the field. One is counseling and information on family planning methods available and where the method is available to the communities, correct? And the second is products. So ASHAs are having OCPs and condoms in their kit. So based on their urban health index register and with the help of this 2x2 matrix, they exactly know that how many resupply she has to do, or if somebody wants, if he is a new user or additional user, so she can give that. So these 2 parts ASHAs providing at the field level. One is information about product services and where it is available, and second, product itself, which is condoms and pads. And the second thing, what was the second, Jessica, can you just repeat that? I'm sorry.
No worries, Mukesh. The lead, assist, observe that we do with the ASHAs, how long time take?
Yeah, thank you. So as Emily mentioned about this program management information system, we very rigorously monitored that how it's moving, the lead, assist, and observe. So every month, our coach, which was field program associate, was scheduled to meet ASHA once in a month. So it means in 1 year of period, ASHA will receive low but frequent dose of coaching or mentoring 12 times. So we observed based on our data that it takes 18 to 24 rounds of mentoring support to ASHA to make her more on observe role and to have skill transferred to ASHA. So as per our data, 18 to 24 months.
Okay, Mukesh, thank you so much for responding to that question. I know we're almost at the hour. It's been super exciting, but maybe just a last set of questions that we have received from our audience that we might want to respond to is just some interest on how COVID-19 and some of the social distancing measures that we are taking are affecting some of the implementation work. There's a question about how with the small and congested urban PHCs, the UPHCs that we we have, are there any changes that we need to make to be able to continue providing services? And maybe if Emily or Mukesh will respond to these questions, I would request if we can add a little data for decision-making twist to it. Like, are there any data points that we will take a look during this time of COVID and see how it changes and how that will allow us or inform us on any changes we need to make to adapt to COVID-19 and continuing implementing our services during this time. So Emily or Mukesh, do you want to give some of your thoughts on those?
Okay,
Yeah.
Jessica. Yeah, Emily, you go ahead
I
first.
just wanted to tell about the data, and then I'll hand over to Mukesh to tell exactly the plan. I mean, what I wanted to inform is, we have looked at the HMIS data for last 2 months, from March 20, like that was the end of our financial year in India. And we have looked at the data in April, for the period 1st April to 20th April, and specifically for all our 3 states. And we are not seeing any update. I mean, that's really not happening. I mean, because definitely also our fixed day services, that didn't happen. I mean, in terms of data, I'm saying what we have seen for the last 2 months, for 1.5 months, in fact. And now Mukesh can, inform us on the plan and how it can roll it over. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Emily. So, Jessica, there are 2 parts of this. One, I mean, with this COVID-19 situation, what is happening currently, and what is going to happen, because we have to live with this COVID-19. So we have to have that, plan and guidelines and procedures, standing operating procedures. What is happening? We all know that everything has been affected with this COVID-19. So the UPHCs are. So, I mean, doctors are posted in many other locations to, at the quarantine centers, for the testing, for vigilance, for so many other things. The best part is ASHAs are visiting 30 households every day, and kudos to chief medical officer, additional medical officers, urban health coordinators, and city level officials, as they have made sure that ASHAs are having condoms and pills in their kits. And as of now, we have not heard any, stock out issues. So at least condoms and pills are reaching there. The second part is how to start these services at UPHC again with the fixed day services and UHND and ORC. Our data says that at every urban health and nutrition days, there are 25 to 30, maybe 35 women and children are coming for different type of services, immunization, antenatal checkups, postnatal checkups. Now it requires a guideline that how they will be attended. So 30 persons coming at a time, or they will come in 2 parts. So it requires a revised guideline, and definitely TCIHC will work with government to do these revisions. In fixed day services, we have 8 to 15 clients on the day of fixed day services. Again, we need a guideline that how many people will come at one time, how they will be, administered there by injectable or IUCD or any other things. ORC is a thing, outreach camps are a thing where, there are hundreds of people coming. So we have to rethink again on that, sitting with the government, state government, national government, city government, to make guidelines for outreach camps. The idea is the service delivery points should provide all the desired services, including family planning, counseling, product, and services.
Thank you so much, Emily and Mukesh. Really great points. I think with all the uncertainty that's, globally we have about this COVID-19 pandemic, it's great to hear that there are data sources, there are some information that TCIHC is looking at in terms of trying to monitor how this is affecting our FP services and our interventions at TCIHC, and all of the plans that Mukesh has shared that is also driven by data. And so, it's a lot of uncertainty, but we are not going blindly, and we will continue to use data for decision making at this time. So again, we're almost at the end of our webinar. Sincerest thanks to all of our presenters, to Mukesh for answering the questions as well. I think there are about 2 or 3 questions that we don't have time to go into anymore. They're more related to program implementation. So maybe we can follow up with those folks separately. But we really want to thank everyone for your very active participation on this 3rd of the webinar series. And we just want to close out by promoting the 4th of the webinar series, which will happen next Wednesday, May 27th, at the same time, 5:30 p.m. India time, 8 a.m. Here in the East Coast, entitled Leading to Change Management, Ensuring Quality and Family Planning Service Delivery. So we hope you will also be able to join us next Wednesday, and you can invite even more people to join us during that 4th of our webinar series. Again, thank you to everyone and congratulations to the entire TCIHC team for preparing this webinar for us. Thank you and have a good rest of your evening, morning, or afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you everyone for participation, and thanks, Jessica.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jessica, and
everyone.
thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica.